Welcome to another episode of Next Wave Conversations presented by the Innovate GPT Group, where we dive into stories, technology and ideas shaping the world of generative AI. I'm your host, Chris Lukianenko, and today we're going to explore the intersection of AI and education with a special guest, Ray Fleming. Now look, Ray is the Chief Education Officer at Innovate GPT and brings an absolute wealth of experience from his time at tech giants like Microsoft Australia and Google. He's a trailblazer in using AI and student data to revolutionize student success and has been a vocal advocate for the transformative power of technology in education. This is a long intro. Now, look, in today's episode, Ray will share his insights on how the generative AI is shaping the educational landscape. We'll delve into his journey from Microsoft to Google and now Innovate GPT and how his global experiences has influenced his views on technology in education. Expect a fascinating discussion. I know Ray loves to have a chat. This is great. And it's going to bridge his passion for travel and innovative work in tech. We're going to cover it all here today. So buckle up as we embark on this educational adventure with Ray Fleming, a true pioneer, I should say, at the cutting edge of technology and learning. How is that for an intro?
Oh, I quite like being a pioneer.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. And thank you for inviting me to have a chat.
Thank you so much. Thank you to ChatGPT for that very thorough intro. There's not
much more to say, really, is there?
No, we're done. Okay, pack it up.
But probably, before we pack up, we should talk about the role of
probably
generative AI and what's going on in education at the moment.
You are one of my favourite types of podcast guests, the ones that can tell a great story, because I've been around you for the last couple of months and I know that you have an absolute passion for what you do and you also have that ability to tell a story, a great combination for podcasting. So, I'm not trying to talk you up too much, but I'm expecting big things from this, mate. So,
okay, well, let me just explain where that passion comes from.
Yeah.
I'm the Chief Education Officer, which my take on that is the best kind of CEO that an organisation can have. Because what I'm thinking about is how do we look at generative AI and how do we transform the education processes and how do we help organisations to transform? Because, education, it's got a model that has existed for 1,000 years.
Yes.
1088, the first university was created, the University of Bologna, and they started with lectures. And the reason they started with lectures was in the medieval days, it was before the printing press, they used to paint the books. And so there was only ever one copy of a book. And so somebody would stand in the middle of a hallway and read it out to all of the scholars. That's a lecture. One person with the information, everyone following it. And here we are nearly 1,000 years later following the same model. Not all of the time.
No.
But we still do lectures.
Yep.
And when you consider the way that other industries were digitally transformed, by the arrival of the printing press, for example, or the arrival of the computer, we've not had that seismic shift in education. And my belief is we are just about to see that.
I was going to put down the bit of I have a dream for you, because that's what it feels like to me. You have this huge idea that you think Gen AI could actually transform education.
Yeah, the way I've said it to some of the people I work with in education is I'm a freak, but I'm the kind of freak you want, which is I'm a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
My learning did not stop at the point I left the education system. In fact, my learning has accelerated. I mean, you can't work at Microsoft and Google with all of the 20-year-old geeks that are passionate about this stuff without working out how you keep up.
Yep.
And so I have to be a lifelong learner. I have to keep changing what I do and the way I do it because I have to keep up with everybody else. And I think that mode of working is what's going to happen for the rest of the workforce.
Yep.
Because, it's not just education that's going to be changed by generative AI. Every industry is going to be changed. Yep. There's work from the World Economic Forum and from UNESCO about which industries are going to be changed the most. It's really interesting that services-rich economies like Australia are going to suffer more in that roles are going to be transformed.
Yep.
I don't go along with that, our jobs are going to be taken by robots because in 1920, people worried about the motor taking over the jobs of horses. It never happened. Sure, we didn't have as many people looking after the stables and mucking out the stables and bringing hay into the city, but we created a whole new wave of jobs. And the same is going to happen. but we're going to have to reskill the economy in order to be there, which means the one and done model of education, go and sit a 4-year degree and then you're done for life, isn't going to happen.
Not going to happen. That's not a bad thing that makes that change in society. I really like that idea.
Oh, absolutely. But there's some challenges with that.
Yeah.
So one of the challenges is we have a model of education that is built on the old model. And so 80% of the people that are my age in the working economy don't have a degree. So they can't go and study at university because there's a whole load of hoops for them to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we're just seeing the emergence of micro-credentials, which is the way to be able to learn something at the point you need it, at the point you're going to apply it, and just the thing that you need. We're going to need more and more of that to reskill the economy. And so when you look at that, you think, how do you deliver that? Because the way we deliver at the moment is a 3 or a 4-year course. And so demand for those longer courses is going down. How do you meet that need for a new way of delivering? And I honestly believe that in order to be able to do it in a cost-effective way, an interactive way, and in a way that gets people hooked on learning, then we're going to have to make use of AI technologies to be able to find the right course for the right student, deliver the right material, give them what they need without giving them everything. It's kind of the Netflix model of learning.
I was going to say that because, back in the day, I did do my university degree, which was, 24 units. And of those 24 units, maybe I only really wanted the marketing element, but I couldn't have that. I couldn't pick what I wanted, like the old pay TV days. You had to have everything, but I only want sports channels. No, we can't do that. Netflix, those things has changed all of that sort of stuff. So you're thinking could be the same kind of spin on the education?
Yeah, I think that we're going to have to think about how we do that because we've got, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, 10 million workers that need reskilling.
Yeah.
The education sector has to play a vital role at the center of that reskilling. And those workers and employees are not going to stop for 3 years while they go and do it.
Yeah.
And they may not be able to devote themselves to an MBA, which is 2 years of hard slog every evening alongside your full-time work. So we need to think about micro-learning. We need to be able to pitch the right learning for the right person.
Yep.
And so there's definitely a role there. If you're thinking big about digital transformation, there's a role there for generative AI.
Yep.
Equally, there's a role in all the traditional things that the education system does. How do you provide, let's take the school system, how do you provide excellent tutoring that we know, and when I say we, that is the education world knows that the way to solve the plateau that we've reached in education in terms of attainment is one-to-one tutoring.
Yep.
But we can't afford to do one-to-one tutoring.
No.
But potentially we can. With generative AI, there is the possibility to provide personalized coaching that works for those students. I know that every time we talk about technology, and I'm as guilty of this as anybody, sometimes we gloss over the downside of technology. The way that technology has enabled lots of us to connect, but equally it leaves people feeling lonely.
Yep.
The suggestion that, let's just give every student a robot tutor. Some students will love that. Some students will hate it, and a majority probably won't really be on either end of the spectrum. But if we can add on top of brilliant teaching, brilliant personalized tutoring that's AI enabled, then that's a great combo.
Yeah.
There are lots of jobs that are going to be replaced by robots, if you read all of the reports and all of the scary films and everything. But the job you absolutely cannot and should not replace is the role of a teacher.
Yeah.
But a teacher's role isn't just about teaching you a thing. It's not just about Pythagoras' theorem. It's about giving you a passion for learning, nudging you and supporting you, asking questions. Some of the most highly professionals I've dealt with in my life have been the ones that didn't tell me anything but simply asked me questions to get me to reflect.
Yeah.
You know what?
I like that.
Psychologists, how did that make you feel? That question? And that's the role of a teacher as well. It's like how to enthuse and engage and inspire is just as important, because that passion for learning, if that carries on outside of the classroom and through the rest of your life, that's when you're
Powerful.
truly enabled.
Yeah. It's not like we haven't had great change in education in the past. You know, we've had computers, the internet, the cloud. What makes this one in your mind like that sort of next level change?
Yeah, I think because what we're going through right now is about human level technology. So I've been hosting a podcast, a bit like you, Chris.
Hey, well done. There you go.
my
Let's drop the name of it. What the name?
My off-topic podcast is AI in Education. So started that in 2019, and that was a different world. When we were talking about AI in 2019, we were talking about what I call algorithmic AI. It was the propeller head, loads of data scientist world.
Yes. Yep.
Where you take all that data away and I'd be able to tell you this movie would be the right recommendation for you with 98% accuracy. It's the stuff that surfaces the addictive content in your TikTok feed.
Yep.
Or the Netflix recommendation that absolutely hits really well. That's algorithmic. And that's about huge data and then personalizing from that data the perspective. This level of AI, this technology, is about what I labeled human AI. And the reason I say it's human AI is because the way you interface with it is the way you interface with a human.
Yep.
So when I started, when I started in my career, I was a developer. I try and hide that as much as I can.
I think it still comes out in you every now and then.
But, I would write coding and I loved it. Transferring across to an example in the real world, I hate plumbing and I love electrics. I hate plumbing because you can be 99% accurate, but you've still got a drip under the sink. Mm-hmm. Whereas electrics, you're either right or wrong.
Yep.
And so I was attracted to coding because it was about building a rules-based thing.
Yeah, sure.
What is really fascinating with generative AI is the interface is human. The way that we nudge it to do things is human. Mm-hmm. Like I always tell everybody when I'm talking to them, be nice to the robots in the way that my grandma used to say to me, be nice to people on the way up because you don't know who you meet on the way down. But for different reasons. Yeah. Be nice to the robots because when you say please to ChatGPT or Gemini, they give you better results. When you say, this is really important to me, I'll get fired if I get this wrong, it gives you a better result. When you say, I'll tip you, because this is American technology, if you tell it you're going to give it a tip, it'll give you better results. If you tell it it's not going to give a tip, it will give you worse results. If you treat it badly, you'll get more terse responses because the way this technology works is that we talk to it like humans and it kind of reacts a bit like a human as well.
Yeah.
And so that's completely different from the technologies we've had up until now, where you've had to have a bit of an understanding of technology. Now, the essential art is, can you interact with a human? Because if you can interact with a human, you're the right kind of person to deal with ChatGPT and their systems to be able to nudge the best performance out of them.
I love this. And I love your role as Chief Education Officer because I think you are, forever learning, as you said before, but I think you're also like a student of the world. For people that don't know, Ray spent a couple of years touring around with his wife and two kids, just going around the globe, backpacking, all over the place. Was actually on a travel show back in the UK. I think you absolutely live and breathe that need and that want to take in new information.
Yeah, I was talking about this only last week, actually. We were talking about careers and I was describing my journey because I've been a developer. I've worked in tech support, picking up the phone and helping people with questions. I've developed code, developed products. I have been in marketing and sales. I was a program manager for Google's global education strategy for cloud. So all our education solutions belong to me. So I've been constantly relearning in order to be able to do that. But the one thing that is common across my whole career is that I'm thrown into opportunities that I don't know how to do. Like I looked at it.
Perfect.
Every single job that I've done, I've not been qualified to do, which is really unusual, especially in Australia where employers tend to look for people that are qualified.
Yeah.
I've always had a big gap. And so I remember...
I can relate.
I was working for Microsoft. I was in the UK. My kids said to me, this is after we'd been around the world with the kids, came through Sydney and they went, this would be a great place to live. 7 years later, the itch appeared. And my kids were like, Dad, you're such an underachiever. You haven't got a job in Australia. So
thanks, kids.
yeah, I mean, if you ever want to get brought down to earth, talk to your kids. But at that point, I was an education marketing manager. I'd spent 25 years in the education technology field. But I couldn't honestly spell university because most of my time was spent with schools and school systems. And I moved down to Australia and I became the education industry lead where I had to understand both schools and universities. And so, big, glaring gap. 5 years later, I was the higher education director and I was just focusing on universities. And that 5 years was a period of massive learning. I feel like I'm in that now with generative AI, but I have learned nothing other than generative AI, business transformation, digital transformation over the last 6 months. And it's still a challenge to keep up, even though it's almost a full-time thing for me to keep learning.
Yeah.
And so that passion for learning and thinking about how I learn best and then thinking about, well, what can we do to help the education system to transform for freaks like me from a learning point of view is really important.
So we talked about effectively creating the Netflix of the education system, which is a great application for this. But what about the business of these higher education facilities? Like, we're talking about the employee experience, the student experience has been the number one, but there's no reason why we can't be applying those same principles to the business of higher education as well. And I think that's maybe something that is missed in talking in this space. We're all talking about the students, but there's more to it than that, isn't there?
Yeah, I actually think 70% of the early transformation is going to happen outside of the academic area. Right. So outside of the teaching and learning side.
Still a benefit to the students eventually, but
absolutely. But even just the process of helping a student find the right course can be enabled. Imagine you're a 14-year-old, you want to be an astronaut. Where do you go? Well, today you probably have a session with a careers advisor who convinces you not to be an astronaut because there are only going to be 12 of those. But imagine if you could have some support through that journey that said, well, here's what you need to learn at school. Here's the subjects you really need to excel at. Here's the extracurricular things you do. Imagine the guidance and support that then culminates in, helping you pick the right university and the right university course. And then maybe halfway through that course, you realize you suffer from motion sickness. You're never going to be an astronaut. How do I reuse those skills? Now, that journey is one that if you apply generative AI to it, it could support you on that whole journey. Like creating the Google Maps or the Apple Maps of education. That bit where you go, I know I want to go there, and here's my journey preferences, and it maps it for you.
Yes.
And then along the way, that road's closed, so I'm going to send you another way. Or, your destination has changed. Now, a few years ago, building that would have been enormously expensive, far too expensive for any one university probably to be able to build on its own. But we've got the equivalent of that in other industries. But I look at generative AI and see it could build that kind of experience. And you could say that's an administrative process about how do we recruit the right students, or how do we support the right students into the right course? How do we design the journey so that they connect with employers? Or you could say, well, how do we keep them engaged through the course? Almost any point of that journey could be supported. The reason I say probably 70% of the early wins are going to happen in administration is, to be honest, the decision-making is faster in administration. If you're, we're here in Melbourne today, there are universities around the corner that spend $30 million a year on marketing. If you're able to save 10% of that marketing budget by more effective recruitment, that's a pretty easy decision to make compared to some of the more complex decisions about how do you change the assessment system. That's a multi-year problem. Again, I believe generative AI can help you. Oral exams, having a chat with something that helps you to test your competence and knowledge. All of that's possible, but it's going to take us longer to get there.
Yeah, I like that idea of being able to test yourself with ChatGPT or the similar tools. I think that's great. I think that's something that is taking a little bit of time to change in the education space. I've got a son who's at university right now, and he's been using the tool this past year or so and absolutely loving it. But early on, it was like, this is bad because you can cheat. Not taking that flip and saying, okay, you can cheat, but we've now got tools to check that if you're cheating. But we can also help you accelerate your learning experience. I think that's the thing that might have been forgotten in all of this, that maybe I can either take in a broader amount of information, or I can take in what you're trying to teach me much more quickly and give me back my time, which is what we're all chasing.
Yeah, and that's especially true for teachers. So look, you touched on detection of AI. I can't let that slide. AI detectors do not work. Just to be absolutely clear, they
Really?
do not work.
Is that just a fear thing they put into the kids at school? Don't use them.
Who knows? But they don't work, and you shouldn't use them. It's unprofessional to use an AI detector for lots of reasons.
Wow.
And if anybody doesn't believe me,
Okay.
let me know, and I'll send you the research papers.
Right,
I'll
yeah.
send you the advice. But just skipping across from that, things it can help you with, like the blank page problem.
Yep.
Of, I've got to tackle this. How do I tackle this problem?
Yeah.
You know, things like that, just brilliant. And the other thing then is teacher. So we've got this issue with a shortage of teachers caused by teachers not really wanting to work in the education system. You know, the data is telling us we always used to lose early career teachers because they would get in there and find the shine wasn't quite what they expected. And then we'd lose late career teachers because they'd eventually retire. But what's happening at the moment is we're losing middle career teachers, which are the really important ones, not the ones we've lost in volume before. And it's the drudge work
Yep.
that is causing them to go, because they're doing things for administration's purposes. They didn't join to fill out forms. They joined to teach kids and inspire them and infuse them. So let's get rid of some of those things. I mean, the system I want to build, Chris, is the robot that writes a curriculum planning document, prints it out, signs it, punches a hole in it, puts it in a binder, puts it on a shelf.
No one ever sees it again.
And then closes the cupboard. Just like, I mean, I've
that.
done plenty of marketing plans like that.
Yeah.
The process is important. Like writing the marketing plan
Yeah.
is about the conversation that happens, not about what appears on the page.
Yep.
The same is true from a teaching plan perspective, because no plan survives contact with the enemy. And that's as true in the classroom as is it anywhere else. You come in with the best will in the world, you're not going to deliver the plan you've got, but the planning has helped inform what you're going to do. And so how do we help that planning process and then move the drudge work off to the robots? And so then as a teacher, you've got more time to do the things you love and that bring value.
And that for me is this whole thing in a nutshell, that generative AI is helping us as humans do the stuff that we don't really want to do, give us our time back to do the stuff that we do want to do and that humans are best at.
Yeah. So I saw it brilliantly put last week. You know, why are we having the robots, AI stuff? Why is it helping dreary people do the creative things instead of the creative people do the dreary things?
Oh, I love that.
And that's just a great way to think about it, because, you know, it is good to help you with creative tasks. You know, give me an idea, give me 3 ideas, give me 2 crazy ideas. You know, that creativity is definitely one of the things. But then the other side is, let's do all the dreary things so that we can all go and do the creative things, or the things that are an art as well as a science.
Oh, I really like that. You know, sometimes I've heard in the past higher education, places of higher education be described as real estate holding companies in a way, because they're huge. They're spread across these great campuses. I know where I'm down in Hobart, there's bits and pieces of it everywhere. If we're going through a revolution because of Gen AI, does that change that real estate type model for them, that they're not going to need all those classes anymore? Or, you know, because we don't do that lecture from the one book type of idea, like how could it be that transformative in that way as well?
Yeah. Yeah, nah.
Yeah, nah. Look at you with your Aussie.
Yeah, well,
Aussie slang.
it's only taken me 12 years to work out that yeah, nah means nah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
no. The reason I don't think that, you know, we've overinvested in facilities and they're going to all be unused is because what we talked about in terms of that lifelong learning thing, isn't a small change. It's a huge opportunity. So I'll give you an example. If you're a university today, if 10% of your alumni bought into the Netflix model and were subscribers to a lifelong learning model from your university, so great, you know, you graduated with the 2023 degree, Now I'm going to sell you the 2024 upgrade and then the 2025.
Yes.
And you're going to have a lifelong learning service. If just 10% of the students went for that, you would double the size of the university.
Right.
Now, you're probably physically not going to double it because all those students aren't going to be there. And, some of the international students that currently come on shore will be studying remotely rather than on a campus here. But we're not talking about replacing one thing with another. We're talking about creating something genuinely new and additive to what's already there.
Yep. Flipping that script again. I love it. So this is all great. Look, we're blue sky dreaming here today. Some of it's already happening. Are you working with any organisations right now on embedding some of these magnificent ideas in?
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, we're still in very early days.
Yeah.
I mean, this technology, ChatGPT, remember, only came out in November 2022.
Yep.
And we're talking about a university structure where I remember I was at a conference once representing Microsoft. And one of the vice chancellors was speaking after me, and he said, it's really fascinating. We make our decisions over the period of a decade. And Ray is from a company that's existed for less than 2 decades. So 2 decision cycles.
Yep.
So in reality, we're still in very early days.
Yeah.
We're being pushed by certain things. So, for example, the fact you can't trust the student writes anymore, unless you're looking over their shoulder when they're writing, it means that some areas like assessment will have to change faster. But I think a lot of things will change a little bit slower. Technology is changing very fast. The key will be doing some early experimentation in order to understand what's possible. One of the big things that I say to people when we talk about what generative AI can do and what it can't do is to always remember the rule of a primary school teacher. So the rules that primary school teachers follow is that they will always add yet on the end of a sentence. Ray can't write yet. Ray cannot string a sentence together yet. That's exactly the same with generative AI. It can't write a lesson plan professionally yet. You've got to put yet on the end of absolutely everything because the pace this is changing.
Yeah.
The answer last week is different to the answer next week.
Yep.
And so that experimentation has got to happen. We're creating some generative AI companies that are going to work on that experimentation. We're working with some around thinking about skills framework and matrix. How do you relate all of courses to workplace skills? And then how do you relate that to real humans? To look at my resume like a human and go, actually, Ray, there's your gap and this is what you need to fill in.
Yep.
And providing advice and support around that. The other thing that really is important in education, as it is in every other industry, but even more important in education, is thinking about ethical, bias-free, responsible, privacy, all of those things.
Yep.
So, we often talk about ChatGPT because that's the thing that's easy to get our head around.
Yes.
But actually, nothing we build in education is built on ChatGPT. We use the same technology, but we use it in a private version where the data is secure, where you can set responsible guidelines, you can manage some of the bias issues. You can also manage the fact that your users might be hostile. I mean, there's nothing more hostile than a 12-year-old on a wet and windy day looking for a way to hack a system. It is different the way we do this to the way we would think about providing services for a bank or whatever. So there's a lot of technology platform things to be thinking about. It isn't just, we dream it, we can go and build it. You've got to build it in a safe, compliant way. Very good.
I think we'll leave it there. This is, an old friend used to say that every day is a school day, and today for me and hopefully for the listeners, this is certainly a true statement, mate. You are totally across all of this. I love your passion and enthusiasm for it. Best of luck with chasing all of these big dreams.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the time.
No worries.